Welcome to the Scouting Report on LUTV. We are back and raring to go after the international break as Leeds are back in action on Saturday. A home game against Millwall, 8 games to go of the Championship season as the Whites look to bounce back following that defeat against Sheffield United. And former Leeds United defender Ben Parker is alongside us. And just before we get onto the Leeds-Millwall game, Ben, international football, it's back in a big way, isn't it? I mean, this week, most people I've spoken to, apart from anyone to do with Scotland, have been pretty positive about things. We've had a number of players away in international duty. England, 2 vibrant performances. What have you made to it all?
I've actually enjoyed it. It's been okay. Like usually these breaks, I'm not a really big fan of them. Like you love your club football, that's what most fans are all about. But the England performance, obviously being English, followed them quite closely. Watched the 2 games, good performances, but also our own players going out there and producing the goods. Think of the 2 guys gone to Northern Ireland in Bailey and Stewart. 2 great performances, 2 great results as well. Obviously, Mateusz Klich going out to Poland. We've got obviously LUFC as well going and guys involved in the younger age groups as well. So you always keep an eye on your players who are going out to play for the countries.
Yeah, they've kept their good form going, of course. Ready to return this week, Ben, and I guess the players will be desperate to get going. I mean, there's nothing they could do for 2 weeks in terms of trying to avenge that Sheffield United game, but a little bit of time off, rest, recharge, come back, and they'll be fired up now. I bet they can't wait for Saturday.
Yeah, and usually the first week of the international breaks, more of a nothing kind of week because, like you say, there are a few days off for the players who haven't gone away. And it's just nice for them guys to spend time with the family, see the friends, and just kind of recharge the batteries because between now and the end of the season, this is the business end now. This is where you need to be fully at it because there's not going to be any breaks. The games will come quick and fast, so you need to be more mentally prepared than anything. But they're in great shape. The performance against Sheffield United was a great performance. Just didn't get the result, but that'll come. We'll keep putting performances like that. The results should follow. Yeah,
and I think to be fair, probably more time that you've kind of been able to digest that game. The players will focus on that. They were initially disappointed about the result because they didn't get what they deserved. But as time goes on, they'll go, look, the performance was okay. We're going to look at Millwall, though, in closer detail. Millwall were involved in FA Cup weekend, of course, in an epic game against Brighton. But this was their last league game, which was an impressive victory as well. We know Birmingham City, of course, have had their issues this week with the points deduction. But a 2-0 success at St Andrews, it's no mean feat. And Millwall this season, I don't know, maybe better away from home than at home in some respects?
I think because the pressure's off them. They can go to places like Birmingham. Yes, this were a Birmingham side that come off the Aston Villa defeat. All the trouble with the fan running onto the pitch also. So they might have had a hangover from that performance. But Millwall capitalised on that. They basically was a standard, typical away team performance, more like a smash and grab because, yeah, they've won the game 2-0, but both of the goals, more kind of like counter-attacks, just getting in behind them and exploiting that kind of space, and then more backs to the wall, especially in the second half. Birmingham got numerous chances trying to get back involved. This has got the goal that were disallowed, but the amount of chances they did create, they could easily got back on level terms, but like saying from Millwall's point of view, there's no pressure away from home and they took full advantage.
Well, they certainly did. I wonder as well about Millwall. I mean, most people I think were watching that cup game when they were 2-0 up going into the very closing stages of the game, Ben. Normally I would say that cup action has no bearing on what goes on in sort of league form. And even though they've had a bit of time to digest that, I mean, the fact that they were so close to a Wembley appearance in an FA Cup semi-final, will it have done some damage to the Millwall players, to try and get over it? Or will it have the opposite effect and actually fire them up to get some results and avenge that?
I think from their point of view, when they've been struggling in a season, what they have been doing in around the bottom half of the Championship, you cling on to little bits of hope, little bits of glory, like trying to get to a semi-final of a FA Cup. So for them to be cruelly missing out on that opportunity, I think it could have a negative effect. It really can. And the big thing for them, who's the next game against? It's against us. So they've got to psychologically build themselves back up for this game because it's going to be an emotional game. The fans, the rivalry is there. Neil Harris already come out saying this is the biggest game of the season for him. So to try and dust themselves off, pick themselves back up for which is going to be a big game because they're scrapping for points also. It could really backfire on them.
I just wondered, David Martin, of course, who let that goal in the goalkeeper, what would your reaction have been as a group of players? Him walking back into the dressing room at the end of that match. I'm just trying to imagine what this lot were actually going to say to him. Maybe we don't need to go there. We probably can't repeat it. Here are the starting lineups then from the last game. Now, look, we know Leeds United, a couple of issues here. Pontus Jansson, of course, has picked up that injury, which we were told he'd be out for 3 weeks following the Sheffield United game. Kiko Garcia, of course, is suspended, so he's not going to play. Belly Peacock-Farrell will come in to replace him. As for Millwall, their lineup could well change. They've been playing two up front quite a lot this season. Lee Gregory, we would expect to possibly come into the team. But from Leeds' point of view, Ben, is it very simple? Does Berardi just come in and replace Janssen, or does Elland go to centre-half? What happens in that centre-back position, do you think?
Well, these are options that are available now because players are back fit. So it's great. Earlier on this season, middle part, around that kind of December time, I can remember Apo Hame coming for a couple of games, trying to drop Calvin back in there. But now, because Berardi's back fit, Elland can easily slot inside. So we're coming up with these options for senior players to fill in a senior role with Pontus being injured. So it's whatever way it goes about it, it's not going to kind of weaken the team. It's, I won't say like for like, but it's more experience for experience, and especially with Bailey coming back in as well. I'm delighted for him to go out and get the couple of games with Northern Ireland.
We made that great save late on.
Oh,
in
fantastic!
Midweek, brilliant,
fantastic, and especially for a keeper as well to get a couple of games under his belt before coming back into the side as well. He'll do his confidence a world of good. So, yeah, look, that's we know that's definitely going to be the change for the keeper, for the centre half. You're either looking at, like I said, Berardi slipping in there, or Elland going inside one and bringing like a Shackleton or a Stuart Dallas into the right back position.
Yeah, he's got a few options, doesn't he? And while Pontus Janssen, we know he's a key player for the team, it doesn't necessarily weaken it a huge amount. I mean, he could throw another surprise in, you know, if Forshaw's back, maybe Calvin Phillips drops into that role. There are a few options for him. What do you think he's going to do?
What I think he'll put Berardi back in there.
At centre-half? At
that centre-half. I'm a firm believer, instead of trying to move 2 or 3 players' positions, just do one position, everyone stays as they are. But, like I say, who knows? Well,
the thing is, Eiling's been coming into form, hasn't he? I mean, not just generally with his play, but his attacking play as well, which could be important. You know, he's been getting forward, getting a few assists. And Berardi, he loves to defend, doesn't he? So it could be an interesting battle, like Steve Morrison, maybe Lee Gregory up top. As for Millwall, how do you expect them to sort of measure it? Because they've been pretty much a traditional 4-4-2 side all the time under Neil Harris. Every time we play them, you know, that's how they play: 2 strikers, you know, 2 wide men. You know, they're strong sort of through the middle. Will it be a similar approach from them at Elland Road, or could you see them maybe going a little bit more like this and have sort of safety in numbers further back?
It just depends what type of performance they actually want to get out of this. I firmly believe teams that have come to Elland Road and sat back, they're on hiding to nothing. It's almost like a slow kind of death, really. If we don't get the goal early on, eventually we'll wear teams down, because it's so mentally for opposition players to just stay switched on for the full 90 minutes. The way his movement off the ball, it's so precise, it's so high tempo. Sooner or later, as an opposition player, you're going to get tired. So for Millwall as a team, I'd like to see him put another body up there, try and have a go, because if I'm the opposition dressing room, I'm coming to Elland Road, I'd rather lose a game by trying to stamp a bit of authority from our point of view, instead of just sitting back for 90 minutes chasing the ball around. It's not enjoyable. So I fully expect Lee Gregory to play, whether he's going to play alongside Morrison. I think that's probably the best way they can go about it, try and be positive themselves, but then they'd leave gaps for us to kind of exploit. So.
Well, I think it'd be difficult for Neil Harris to keep Steve Morrison out, of course, against his former club, particularly with what happened last season in the fixture here at Elland Road. We do know, of course, that Millwall, I mean, less said about that, the better, but we do know that Millwall, of course, more often than not, they get up for this game, don't they? I think Leeds is sort of one of the matches, particularly the supporters enjoy. And, you know, Millwall themselves, the position that they're in the division, Ben, they need the points, don't they? I mean,
they do need the points, because, especially with a guy like this in the team in Lee Gregory, he can get you goals. He's one of those niggly strikers. Been playing in the non-league for a few years myself.
He was great at Halifax Town, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I've played with a lot of players who've played with him, and I always ask them, what was he actually like? Because I've seen him obviously come through the league, score goals in the Championship, score goals in League One as well. And they say he's like an all-round kind of striker, but one thing about him is he's in and around the box, and he's like an instinctive kind of finisher. He always seems to be the right place at the right time, and it's a hard skill to kind of have that as a striker.
Yeah, he's a player I think that people have often talked about. He'd maybe go up to, you know, a club sort of higher up than Millwall, but it's not happened yet. But he's a dangerous player, isn't he? And probably the man to watch out for, isn't he, from our point of view. Well, let's take a look, Bennett, then how Millwall are scoring their goals away from home. And, you know, sometimes this season on the scouting report, we've looked at, you can see an obvious pattern, can't you, in how they kind of do things. But Millwall actually are a side that I think on the counter-attack have hit teams and surprised people. This isn't a set-piece side necessarily. And I think they proved that in the fixture last year, actually, at Elland Road. You know, I mean, I know it was a dramatic game and a dramatic end to the match, but they did, you know, they scored a couple of good goals, breakaway goals, and that's probably the threat that they've got, haven't they? A little bit of pace. Yeah,
I was surprised, kind of looking at the stats. I just got a perception of Millwall, probably watching the FA Cup run more than anything, being a set piece kind of team where they're really strong at that. They've got some good delivery, they've got some players who get themselves into the penalty area and they're good in the air, but majority of the last probably five to six away games in the Championship, the goals have been scored from either ping around the box, second phases, or whether they've been getting a counter attack and breaking forward using the pace that they have got in the side. Because, like saying, I thought they were more of a set piece team, but you see Lee Gregory build up in there, and all of a sudden on the way with Wallace on this occasion.
He's a good player, isn't he?
He's a dangerous player, and like any team in the Championship, you go through and look at a squad. They've got good individual players, and Millwall are no different. It's just whether they can tie it in all together. Obviously, this is old Leeds boy there, Adam Clayton, get dispossessed.
But that's Gregory, isn't it? Not giving you a moment.
Exactly. And again, the man there, Wallace breaking into the box and a tidy finish. So we've got to be careful, because that could easily happen at Elland Road. We'd be in possession inside their half. They nick it back and they go counter on us quite easy.
Here's how they concede their goals, and they have conceded a fair few on their travels this season. I mean, I think it was last season, everyone sort of thinks Millwall have been very tough at home at the New Den and not as great on their travels. Last season it was a bit of a roles reversed. They had this incredible run away from them, didn't they? And they threatened the playoff places. But conceding goals has obviously been a problem given where they are in the league, Ben. So there are going to be areas for us to exploit, aren't there?
Yeah, and there seems a little bit of a pattern just based on the last 4 to 6 games as well. They get into these positions, the opposition, kind of like the right-hand channel, cutting inside into the box. And from Millwall's point of view, they've got plenty of bodies back there, but they're unable to stop the goal going in. Again, they've built the ball out wide. And how many times have we seen this season with Pablo Hernandez getting in those kind of positions? Yes, not cutting in, but producing something really spectacular. And like I say, we can exploit that, because again, getting into wide areas, whether it's as full-backs bombing on, whether it's the wide men rolling in, and like a Tyler Roberts running into the space, a Patrick Bamford running into the space, any little bits of movement, for some reason, the last few weeks especially, the Millwall defence haven't really been able to stay with the runners.
Yeah, potentially if you put some concerted pressure on them, maybe that's sort of where it tells a little bit. Here's the sort of accumulation of statistics over the last 5 matches, and there's not a massive surprise really to see, as again the possession leads on top, and of course pass success. But in terms of shots, there's not a massive difference in there, and goals actually. So we're probably playing Millwall at a time where they would feel they've hit a little bit of form.
They have done, and again it goes back to what we're about. How do we approach the game? Obviously, start well. It's a funny saying, of course, start games well. No, of course we want to do that, but can we be just more clinical? And that goes back to the Sheffield United game, because the performance there, in terms of look at the numbers from the stats against Sheffield United, it was streets clear. And I fully believe when we're bang at it, we are the best team in this division. But when we tie everything together and we become clinical, you get a West Brom performance, and that's obviously the pinnacle what we're trying to aim for. But if we get an opportunity, get near the goal, it settles everyone down. But we just know we've got to do the basics for full 90 minutes, because we know Millwall won't give anything up quite easy. Yeah,
and as we say, performances have been very good. I mean, the QPR one, even then I don't think that was a bad performance. It was just it was a bad night, but it wasn't awful by any stretch. And since then, they've played really well. Obviously, the defeat against Sheffield United, but again, any neutral, anyone who's watching that game knows that that's not what we deserve. Sheffield United would have said the same thing about the game down at Bramall Lane. But generally speaking, the team are in good nick, aren't they?
And that's why all the players are positive up at the training ground. Spoke to a few of them over these last 2 weeks, and because usually when you have a defeat, you want the next game to come around really quick, get out of your system. But having this 2-week break in the international period, I think it's been a great time. Just because a couple of players are trying to get back from fitness. We've got Bailey playing in a bit of form by playing a couple of games, because we know he's going to be playing against Millwall. And also the performance against Sheffield United was there. So as a player, you're looking back on it thinking, yeah, there's going to be times where you're not going to score every game. That's just football, unfortunately. But the performance is there, and I know the manager and the staff are big on performance, because they think we get a good performance. 9 times out of 10, we do get a good result.
Now, I know I said Millwall had a little bit of form. This probably says a little bit differently, but what I'm talking about is maybe the performance, because they performed very well against Brighton. Obviously, they had the slip up at the end, and in these games, they've not been sort of well beaten in a lot of them, and that was a good victory for them, wasn't it? Away at Birmingham. So I know we're a better side than Birmingham City this season, but I think just Millwall just showing that they score goals. They concede, obviously, but they're quite confident, I think, going into any match that they're going to score.
Of course they are, and that's the thing in the back of my mind, where I think, from our boys' point of view, be wary that they do concede goals. So just don't think, we're going to have a lot of possession, we're going to have a lot of territory. Just think, because they've scored quite a lot of the goals lately on a counter-attack, be wary of that the pace breaking forward from Wallace, with Gregory trying to close you down, not give you minutes rest. So have that mindfulness in the back of your mind where they can probably break away and get a counter attack. But also on the flip side, go be positive, go express yourselves, create all the movement, create that energy, create that tempo that we know we can do, and go exploit their weaknesses.
They do get fired up for games against Leeds United as well, for sure. 8 games to go, Ben, and you've been in a dressing room in a similar position to the Leeds players that are now, of course, back in 2010. It purely just game by game now. I mean, you know, we can't really try and think too far beyond it, and we can't really predict what's going to happen, can we? I mean, I think we know that if we play as we can play, we've got a great chance of winning every single game, but obviously we need other teams to sort of slip up. But you think that there are going to be, people keep saying it, there are going to be twists and turns, but there are, aren't they? We're probably going to switch positions with Sheffield United, maybe even Norwich a couple of times before the season's finished. Yeah,
and I've had so many people come up to me, even I've probably done it myself, looking at each fixture and think, what points we're going to get from that one, what might we're not. But you just think, like I say, each game as it comes, because like say 2010, that's what we did. We had a target set in his minds, what we're trying to achieve before the season, but then he breaks it down to the last 8 games. You've got to just take each game as it comes, because you start thinking past this game and you soon get found wanting. We kind of fell over the line in 2010, got a bit of luck, but don't matter how it comes by, as long as you get over that line, that's all that counts.
That is all that matters. 8 games to go. LUTV will be there every step of the way, of course, bringing you every minute of the action. If you're outside the UK and Ireland on Saturday, you can watch the game with a match pass available at leedsunited.com. UK and Ireland, you can get audio commentary, but that does include, of course, all the build-up to the match and post-match reaction live from Elland Road with this man, Ben Parker. Ben, thanks very much for joining us for the Scouting Report. We'll have the big match preview a little bit later on this week, as well as Marcelo Bielsa's press conference, looking ahead to the return of the Championship. Leeds United taking on Millwall.